been there.
See,
I've heard stories about that.
Yeah, so
I want their leader brought here. Brought to me. I want the revolution
when you see that kind of level, I mean, even Pakistan streets are probably harder than Chicago.
Yeah, on a general level, yeah. Because like, look, a lot of people in Chicago.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, I got robbed with a smile, bro. I mean, I attempted to rob with a smile. A little kid who's like 14 on a motorbike, tapping the window. Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's something you don't see in Chicago.
Yeah, no, I think the Chicago problem is a lot of people obviously get scared because so much violence, but a lot of that violence is in between gangs. In the daytime, you're not going to have that much of an issue in some places.
I think if you're caught in the
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Madam Luke's. My name's Sim. Along with me are my trusty co-hosts, Sheikh Amir.
Oh, trusty.
And the one and only Mort.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Please be a pal and like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Throw a comment in the comment section below with your thoughts related to this show. Brothers and sisters, we got a wonderful show for you guys this afternoon. We are waiting for Ustad Bilal Abdul Kareem to join us.
BAK.
So he's running a little late, but you have us.
You have us.
Little us.
Yeah.
Little us.
We're just an acronym like BAK.
Back.
Yeah, back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Return of the back.
Okay, whoa, that can go really bad. Hold on 1 second. So, one quick. I know there were a few things we were talking about as far as like just during the banter, but
did you watch the debate between
Douglas Murray and Dave Smith?
Dave Smith, yeah.
Yeah, DM versus DS.
So fill me in, guys, because I did not have. I've been so busy lately.
Okay, so basically, Douglas Murray, for those who don't know, he's kind of he's a homosexual, but he's also
conservative,
like anti-woke.
Yeah,
but he's also conservative. He's a ultra-nationalist. He hates Muslims and immigration coming into the West. But he has also very pro-Ukraine type beliefs as well. He's very pro-Zionist. So he's very much establishment type of a person, and he came on the show on Joe Rogan's podcast, the largest podcast in the world, and he started talking about, or he immediately started the show basically attacking Joe Rogan for bringing on guests that
discrediting him I think is a better word.
Yeah,
he discrediting. But look, if you don't understand the way the smug Douglas
Murray was like
is,
really passive aggressive.
It's very but that's what he does. Look, what he doesn't have content, but what he's really good at is sounding like he's very smart to the uninitiated. If somebody's uninitiated in the conflict, that's why if you see the comments, a majority of the people didn't like him at all. But if you're uninitiated, he speaks in his British accent. He speaks very slow. Yeah. He has these certain gestures that make him seem overly confident, and he just goes in circles. So the first thing he did was damage their credibility, because Ian Carroll was on there, Dave Smith, Joe Rogan. Why are you hosting all the people who are
so you think a gay version of Edward Dutton?
So this is something. Those who watch this show regularly, we talk about the playbook that Zionists play by. What do? If they can't drop a bomb on you, right? That's a default thing. If you're not a Palestinian and they can't drop a bomb on you, well, what'll they do? And this has been characterized. This has been explained by former Mossad agents as well, that they will create a whisper campaign to discredit you. Like he's, don't.
That's what he was there for. That's what he was there for. Not to win a debate.
Not to win a debate. He was there to discredit.
Very well said.
That you're not an expert, and that's all he did.
Hold on, guys. You been there? Remember how much he was harping on that? You haven't been there. Sorry, 1 second. He was so fake. You could see because I've done that. I see little kids do that. Wait, you haven't been there, and you're talking about the conflict, and he takes that and he brings it back and he brings it over. Dude, they wore out 3 hours of just him complaining, and he keeps bringing that stuff back in. So the end of it, look, a combination of him talking slow, taking a long time to respond, these weird gestures where there's pauses, all of that, he took up maybe like a half an hour in that whole podcast just with silence and his speed of his speech.
So can we
he just eats that up and discredits at the same time.
Yeah.
And then he talks about all the main voices that are getting the biggest popularity. Ian Carroll, this guy Dave Smith, who's a Jew also.
Yeah.
And he was there just to make sure that Israel is okay and gives him a pat on the back. You did a good job of discrediting these people. That's why he's there.
Yeah.
He's not there to win a debate because everybody knew he got massacred. It was embarrassing.
So can you guys level set for someone like me? Who was he debating?
Dave Smith. Dave Smith.
Do you know Dave Smith? Yeah, okay. Dave Smith. Very, very good, passionate dude. I like him.
Mm-hmm. He's a Jewish comedian who's against many. He has many opinions, but lately he's been on all the programs related to Gaza and the
almost everything. He's one of those popular voices. Like you said, look, you said comedian. Yeah. How much time did Douglas Murray spend on comedians shouldn't be talking about Gaza? In that podcast, you know what I'm talking about? And then he brought it back again towards the middle of the podcast or towards the end. He keeps re-engineering this over and over just to buy time. He's running the clock, recirculating things. And the reason why I feel bad for Dave Smith, and he got caught up in this, Dave Smith ended up having to defend himself over and over, and that wore out the clock too.
Yeah.
He kept on, he fell into that trap where he kept on having to defend himself, and they changed the subject completely. They didn't get a chance to talk about a majority of the stuff that you're supposed to talk about.
Yeah, all the.
So this is why it's crazy to me, because people need to understand that debating Zionists is a different. It's not a debate. It's a show of force, right? So, for example, when you see people like for example, some people were displeased with the way Muhammad Hijab treated Rabbi Shmuley, right? I mean, meaning that he could have explored ideas and concepts or whatever, right? But if you really analyze it, for example, the Shmuley guy, right? Like, that's what they do. They berate people. Yeah. They try to use this passive-aggressive tone, but essentially what they're trying to do is intimidate and berate. Yeah. Right? So you want to set the stage that, hey, I'm not intimidated by you, and I don't care if you're a fan. Because what they try to use is the idea that, how dare you? Like, feel shame. We've been suffering. Jews have been suffering. How dare you mock that? Or how dare you, an anti-Semite, right? And what someone who debates the Zionists has to be unafraid of is that I don't care what you label me. Yeah. Fine, you want to call me anti-Semite? Call me one. Yeah. Right? But point being is you have to be able to ignore that stuff and grill them, even if it's childish. Like, for example, when it comes to Shmuley, right? Like, I would say very clearly that, obviously they talked about how they have a dildo business, right? It's irrelevant to the topic, but it's the same thing that they do. They bring up irrelevant things. Like, for example, with this guy, Douglas Murray saying, have you been to Gaza? Have you been to Israel, right? Irrelevant to the conversation, right? Over and over. And that's why you say, you would I just call him a straight up sodomite all the time. I say, you sodomite have no business. I mean, that's what you have to respond to them that way.
No, but one of the things that you have to pay attention, commonality in all of these debates, whether you're watching Piers Morgan or anything, they just throw everything at you. You're just keep on on the defense. Whether it's true or not makes no difference to them. They just keep throwing stuff.
Yeah, mudslinging.
And so you as a person doesn't have anything to say against them. Yeah, because you're constantly on the defense.
More you said mudslinging. You know what? Look, I'll tell you one thing. When I was listening to that podcast, I had my headphones in. I was taking my kids to the park. While they're at the park, I go walking by. So I have to watch them and monitor them, right? Especially my 7-year-old. So I started losing track of how many times Douglas Murray brings back the original stories of the tunnels. The reason I'm saying that is, I felt like I was being, just by an observer of this debate, I was being swarmed by bees of the stuff that he keeps throwing, and they're not able to handle any of those. Yeah. And all he did was, from the beginning, ever since October 8th, the same stories that they talked about, the tunnels, the human shields, all he did was do that, say it slowly in a British accent, acted confident about it, and that's all he did. He just regurgitated everything. Yeah. So what I saw through him as a propaganda machine of Israel on Joe Rogan's podcast, because obviously Joe Rogan's getting a lot of popularity through the guests that he has that were speaking bad of Israel. He was basically there to just stir things back up, bring people back to the original point. Yeah. Bring people back. Hey, don't forget about the tunnels. Hey, don't forget about the human shields. And now we have to be busy with all that again. Yeah. And everything is being forgotten about, like what's happening in Syria now with Israel. Yeah. And what happened in Lebanon and what's happening everywhere else. And dude, I got so angry. And you know what I tell myself? I was like, why the hell am I listening to this? Bro, I was livid. The reason I was mentioning my kids at the park, I had to apologize to them afterwards because I kept on getting mad at them for no reason. Oh, wow. Because I'm listening to this in one ear and I'm watching them in the other ear, and then I'm like zoning off and I'm listening. I'm getting so angry. And I told myself I'm never listening to these debates, so I take my kids to the park because it's supposed to be like a nice time. Yeah. And bro, but I'm telling you, I was so angry. Angry. I was like, why am I so angry? Why do I feel why do I feel violent right now?
Okay, so here's another thing everyone's got to pay attention to. The constant Zionism, it's almost like, remember just a couple weeks ago, they were talking about Qatar, right? You start seeing everyone who was a Zionist, parroting the same thing. Like, oh, are you Qatar funded? You know, are you such and such funded? Like, even from the beginning, right? Everyone was saying about the beheaded babies.
Yeah.
That turned out to be BS,
Yeah.
right? Then it was
the rape,
mass rapes,
yeah.
right, and all that stuff. But now you see even this: the president of the United States, on his Truth Social, starts saying, "My friend Douglas Murray just released a new book on democracies."
Oh my God.
Isn't that creepy? How coordinated all these things are. Like we talked on the previous show, how Netanyahu, when he recently came, he brought in all the social media activists that are on his side, and they had these like private conversations under these rules called Chatham House rules, where you can't talk about anything that's happening or who came to the event or anything like that. It's like very secret. And so they it seems like they are all on some Signal group or whatever, or WhatsApp group, and they're like receiving orders from some
deep state,
puppet master
for sure. This is deep state for sure. A lot of it has to do with deep state. Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
What date was this? What date did he post this?
This was yesterday.
Can you imagine? Trump was on Joe Rogan's podcast, right?
Yeah.
Before the election. Joe Rogan basically won him that election, as some people say.
Yeah, some people.
And then Douglas Murray shows that same book on. He had his book there.
Yeah.
On the podcast, and now Trump.
Yeah.
Posts this book of Douglas Murray after going on to the Joe Rogan podcast. How crazy is that?
Yeah. You know, I remember the first episode where Rogan had a politician on. It was what's her name? The
Candace
Bernie.
No, the female. What she's
Tulsi?
Tulsi
Gabbard.
She had Tulsi, and I was like thinking, this is going to set a precedent for you that you're going to later regret, because before it was just like guys, you know, regular Joes talking about they would talk about politics and stuff, but now you've set up a precedence where you brought, you know, politicians on. And I really feel like in a few years he's going to regret ever bringing Trump on, and even just going down this trajectory of bringing politicians onto the show.
And that's why this is a tricky look, because he is a very curious person, and he wants to, at least that's what he gives off, right? And
Yeah.
he believes in long form conversations, which most people should, instead of having like a 20-minute snippet of, you know, a small conversation to get everybody's opinions. So where do you find the balance, though? Because you want to know. So it's almost like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right?
Yeah, well, it depends, right? Because you're not really challenging. You're just letting them talk. You're not even. I think he would have treated what's her name, Kamala, the same way. I think it would have been nice and just kind of let her talk. But you're just literally just letting them advertise on your show. You know?
And that's so. Here's the thing. This is kind of coming back to something too, where I have a problem with, right? It's a slightly different scale, but like I have a serious problem. Like him or hate him, but Elon Musk being so close to the president, right? Having an ear of the ear of the president, right? Yeah. Aside from the money aspect, meaning the influence that a person has at that level to be that close to the president.
Yeah, corruption.
And the same thing I have with Joe, meaning like it or not, but you know, his platform is watched and viewed and trusted by millions.
Yeah.
So you may not agree with what your guest is saying. However, the thing is that you're allowing it to be platformed and unchecked, right? So my thing is, I don't have a problem with platforming people, but if your job is to get to the truth, that's what you claim to do all the time, right? Yeah. There should be some pushback.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. He likes to do long form, but you're not like who the guy, Lex Friedman. Right, who just basically lets it be completely long form. It doesn't really put his ideas too much into it. Lets the person talk. That makes sense. But Joe Rogan's supposed to be the guy that has ideas, right? Like he's supposed to be the guy that pushes back. So to let someone just come on there,
did he push back at Donald Trump at all or no?
I don't think so.
I think
he just asked questions. I mean,
he sometimes he asks some questions that are a little bit like questioning the comment, but it's not a serious pushback.
Yeah.
Right. Not like how he would do to other guests.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
speaking of guests, is he on now? I think I heard someone say Assalamu alaikum.
The man of the hour.
Sorry, more to cut you off. I just heard his voice. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
He's here.
How are you, Ustad? Bilal Abdul Kareem. Welcome to the show.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you turn up the microphone a little bit? Or
sounds like you're far from it.
Can you turn it up or turn it down?
Turn it up.
So you know what it sounds like? It sounds like you're using a microphone that's in the laptop. There's echo everywhere. You can hear your entire building, like whatever's going on around you.
Really? Let's see what we've got here.
Yeah.
It might not be switch to the microphone you have on your pinned onto you.
Is that better?
No. I think it's using the laptop's microphone.
Yeah, I don't think it's picking that microphone up that you're holding. I don't think it's picking that one up.
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
So, as he sorts that out.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So I think that the game is so, bringing back him publicizing Douglas Murray's book. Yeah. The network, like you talked about, is very tight knit. They're all on the same page. They're all following. They're all a part of the same chorus. Mm-hmm. They're all playing different roles in the chorus. One happens to be the president of the United States. But look, just think about journalism. I mean, I know we've been talking about this for the past 20 years, but what business does a journalist or a journalistic company have making tons of money for the president or on the behalf of? You know what I found out yesterday? I found out that Pepsi has a lot of funding from the American Heart Association.
Wow.
And General Mills cereal. And I was looking at, because Joe Rogan said this, I didn't believe it, where it says that Lucky Charms is more healthier than steak because of cholesterol and fat in steak and red meat.
Oh my God.
And I see that all the people, all the companies, you could see who's sponsoring and funding American Heart Association. Pepsi?
Wow.
So having a can of Pepsi a day is not too bad for you?
Yeah. The reason I brought that up is now even on the news, or like on the level of somebody being that close to the president, who's the richest man in the world, he's obviously going to have influence on policy, which he's not supposed to.
Yeah.
Well,
that's corruption.
Forget about policy, dude. He's paying $1 million for people to vote. Like, is that not biggest? I mean, under the guise, it's corruption. I mean, it's under the guise of a super PAC, but we know what's happening, right? You're buying a vote, right? That's essentially what you're doing, right? And isn't that the very thing that we were trying to avoid? So I think fundamentally, what the problem America has right now is that you have corporate interest. Let me put it this way:
Bilal, can you test our microphone?
Yeah, Bismillah, 1, 2, 3, ABC.
It's still picking up your laptop's microphone.
Interesting.
Is he using?
No, are you using Zoom?
Yeah, I was gonna say you can select the microphone option from Zoom.
Yeah, I'm using Zoom.
If you're using Zoom, just select the microphone, go into the settings, and make sure that microphone is selected.
Like within the Zoom application, not from your computer, because Zoom allows you to, if you have multiple mics, you can select which mic that you want.
Okay. All right. Just give me a second here.
Yeah. Take your time.
Yeah. But I was going to say that fundamentally in America, though, you have a problem in two folds. Number one, you have corporate interest, super PACs and big lobbies, right? And then number two, you have this never-ending campaigning season. The minute a person gets elected, it's campaigning time again. The next day. So for 4 years, you have to be bombarded with propaganda.
But more is loaded with corruption because the people who make the best campaign contributions, that's who you're going to make policies for.
Yeah, but I'm saying even if you had none of that, I'm just saying even if you had someone touring around for 4 years, holding rallies all day long, it's a problem. Like other countries only allow campaigning for 6 months before the election. They don't let you just go uncharted for years just campaigning. It's just a political bombardment. It just allows for people to spread lies and, because political advertising is heavily meant to assassinate the character of your opponent and demonize your other party. So you have to hear that for 4 years. It's so polarizing.
Yeah.
Nobody can make a decision. Right? So
the art of confusion. That's what that is.
Our fundamental problem is the way we hold our election process and how we elect officials. We have a fundamental problem. Today it's Elon Musk. Tomorrow could be Warren Buffett. Right? It's not just Elon Musk himself. Yeah. It's the system itself. It's designed for that.
Yeah. And I think that's what you're seeing, the reason why or how deep the money goes, the $300 million that Mary Madison gave Trump, you're seeing how much pull it has on Trump, where he's using his social media account to promote Douglas Murray. He
has to.
And give him credibility.
Wow.
They're trying to shift. They're ultimately trying to shift MAGA to pro-Israel. And MAGA, if you are on Twitter right now, you're seeing them get blasted. Israel is down. Like, it's a very unpopular opinion to be.
I think even MAGA right now is unpopular. I mean, even Maha.
They're not happy with Trump.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, the base that they're like, hey, we wanted to make America great again, not make Israel great again. Yeah. Right?
And
like,
then even
and it's not even just that. Like, I'm saying even tariffs. Like, so.
You put on tariffs and then you rolled them back.
No, but not only that, but like politics, foreign policy is one thing that I think MAGA supporters knew about. Like, it was just going to be that way, right? But they genuinely thought that he was going to be good for America itself. But Trump has done what Russia has been trying to do for the last 40 years, and that's caused a rift between its allies.
Yeah.
And Trump single-handedly, in one day, by announcing tariffs, caused a problem between Canada, Mexico, all of the European Union, its trade partners, everybody, right? Right now, Europe is actively looking to negotiate with China in order to avoid because American goods are going to be too expensive, and they're also going to go up in pricing, right? So the idea here is, hey, is something causing it to come out of focus?
Yeah, you went out of focus.
But is it something in the screen or
no?
In the shot? Okay, yeah. Anyways, but the point being is that this idea of making America, this is what's kind of crazy to me, that the idea of making America great again doesn't work without Western allyship. Right, you need Western part. You can't be isolated to that level, right? And make America great again, right? You need to have your Canadian partners. You need to have your Mexican partners.
That's what you're saying.
You need to have your European partners. In Europe, it's to maintain American hegemony, right? Just for example, even in foreign policy matters, right? In terms of the UN, NATO, right? You need to have allyship, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you really want to make America great again, pissing off your closest allies, who have is not the way to go. And it's ultimately the biggest thing is you're going to harm your economy, which we are. We're seeing American businesses who voted for Trump thinking that he's going to jumpstart the economy are thinking that in 6 months they're no longer going to be able to be in business. Because most of American... And you know what's really crazy to me? This is what really surprised me. So I watched this thing by Tim Cook, who's that, the gay Apple CEO guy, right? And he was talking about why America goes to China.
Yeah.
And we've successfully absorbed this narrative that we can do this narrative of American exceptionalism, that we can manufacture, we can build the greatest product. We just choose not to because it's cheaper to do it in China, right? And that's the narrative. And so Tim Cook says that that's not why we're in China. We're in China because actually what he said is that for the last 10 years, Chinese prices are actually expensive compared to other areas in the world, like Vietnam, Bangladesh, whatever, other manufacturing places. We go there for the craftsmanship. And so he's like, I can hold a meeting in America of all the tool machinists around here, and I could maybe fill up one room. I can go to China and fill up stadiums in every city.
Wow.
Of this. And that's why we go there, because they have a superior product. Their quality control is better. Their work ethic is better. It's better in China.
Nobody says that. You're right.
Nobody says that. And that's a CEO of Apple telling you why they can't bring manufacturing back. Another example, Trump opened up a Louis Vuitton in conjunction to bring manufacturing in Texas somewhere, right? Yeah. Apparently, that is the lowest productive Louis Vuitton factory in the world. And they're struggling because they can't find artisan craft people who can make leathers like the right way they can do in other areas in China. They cannot. He said one of the sources leaked that it took them 2 years to figure out just one pocket design to get that part right in a Louis Vuitton purse, in one purse model.
Because Americans got acclimated, or Louis Vuitton
it's not just acclimated, it's just
type of craftsmanship.
It's not also a skill set that they're trained in.
No, but we got used to obviously dealing with them so much that we prefer that type of craftsmanship. That craftsmanship is not
it's
found
not just
here.
That. It's not that. Amir, it's not that we prefer Chinese craftsmanship. It's the way the craft is supposed to be, but it's been outsourced. And so all of our bespoke guys, like we have maybe 100 companies that are bespoke companies in America that can make, if you wanted a genuine leather wallet, you might find maybe a couple hundred, a couple thousand bespoke companies that do that, right? So you customize your wallet for you, your exact design, right? Otherwise, they're making one-offs for themselves. And they're very small. They couldn't pump out And even why would they quit their own bespoke business to come work for a factory?
Yeah.
Right? That limited availability of the skill set required to do that is not available in America. And so this notion that it's just cheaper in China is just not true.
Yeah, and for example, a few episodes ago we were talking about how Indonesia is one of the largest manufacturers of guitars in the world. It's like second or something like that. Yeah, Indonesia, a Muslim country, and they can't bring those factories back over here. The reason why is because you need skilled people in order to make those guitars. And in Indonesia, they play a lot of guitar over there.
Yep.
And those people know how the instrument's supposed to be crafted, constructed, how to test it out, build it. And those factories aren't going to come here.
That's crazy.
That's going to take decades. That art is lost. You can't just bring it here. And that's why Xi Jinping is laughing.
Yes.
He's laughing at America trying to... Or no, it was actually not Xi Jinping. It was Putin who was laughing at the trade war that's happening between these two. He's like, America's 15 years too late on this. That ship has sailed with the tariff war.
Well, here's the bigger thing, and this is what I think were the Moab that China could drop. All right, and what it is this. Do you know how we talk about Chinese products and we say, oh, it's not as good as the other ones. China's cheap. Mm-hmm. Well, they intentionally make it cheap or less inferior quality because they're trying not to make one-for-one knockoffs of American products because they don't want to infringe on intellectual property.
Yeah.
Because they want to maintain the trade relationship. What China is saying is that if you want to go to a trade war with us, we'll just scrap that. We'll allow all of our companies to just violate intellectual property, and we'll offer goods to Europe and other places that will buy the exact same Apple phone and everything you want, the same TV, the same quality, the same clothing. We won't care. We'll sell it off, and there's nothing you can do about it. And intellectual property is something that America was hanging over China in order to do business with America. But China is very clear, like, hey, you guys only give us 18% of our market. Right, we don't really care at that moment. We can get 80% from everywhere else.
Yeah, here it is.
Соединенные Штаты опоздали лет на 15.
The United States about 15 years too late.
Они не смогут остановить развитие Китая.
They won't be able to stop China's development.
Это невозможно сделать.
It's impossible to do.
Невозможно сказать солнцу.
Just as it's impossible to tell the sun not to rise. It'll rise
Но
anyway.
есть объективные процессы
экономического
развития.
But there are objectives and processes.
Они связаны с миллионом факторов.
They're connected to millions of factors.
Вот эта попытка сдержать развитие Китая, она негативно отражается и на экономике самих Соединенных Штатов. Они делают производство ряда своих товаров низкоконкурентоспособными. А если дальше пойдут по этому пути, сделают вообще неконкурентоспособными в отдельной отрасли экономики. Так сложилась кооперация на протяжении предыдущих десятилетий между экономикой Китая и Соединенными Штатами. Она взаимосвязана. Все это понимают. Но вот те действия, которые мы наблюдаем сегодня со стороны Штатов, мне кажется, что они имеют контрпродуктивный характер.
So I have a question for you. When China comes out and says that we're okay eventually and not dealing with the dollar, what does that mean for, like, what is the rest of the world? What are all the powers of the world when they see China making that announcement in front of the world? What happens? What's happening? Is this a product of him saying that? Of one of the things of what he's saying here right now?
So I think the United States strategy is to devalue the dollar to make it more competitive against China. Now, I don't know economics enough in that level of detail to know what the repercussions of that is and how you go about doing that. But maybe we can have a guest on.
But as far as the reputation, as far as the reputation.
Also, to be honest, is that it could be also a play by Trump and his cronies, because when the markets tank, there's blood in the water, and they can just buy everything up. Right? Yeah. I mean, if billionaires are going to get rich, this doesn't affect the billionaires, right? Because if people have to go under and there's stuff for sale, they're just remodeling their business. They're just reinvesting and buying more stuff that's going to go back up in prices. Markets are parabolic, right? Markets will go up and down, right? There's dips, there's blood, there's dark days in the market. And this could be all a ploy to try to do that. And, who knows? And maybe they're just deadly serious about this, about really making that dividing line between the West and the East and saying, hey, listen, you're either with us or you're not, and that's just the way it's going to be, right? Like, this is our policy. This is what we're going to do. And you sign on board and they're probably banking on the fact that America can muscle other countries into falling in line, but I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think China is fully invested in not backing down from this trade war, and here's the advantage. I think trade wars ultimately, what is the trade war? It's a war on taxes. Or tariffs are taxes, saying you have to pay a tax, right? And historically, Americans are harder to tax, meaning that ultimately those taxes would feed down to the consumer.
Yeah.
Right? China as a population, if we talk about government control, China has way more control over its population than America does. So push come to shove, let's say this trade war pushes out and things get very bad. 6, 8, 9, 10 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. That threshold where people begin to just break out in civil unrest, I think China could do a better job in controlling civil unrest. And we saw that during COVID than America could do.
Ever.
And China is banking on that. Hey, we can endure. We'll eat grass. We were peasant farmers. Because Vance calling them peasants. Like, we were peasants. We'll be peasants again. We don't mind, right? But they can force their people to endure that. They've done that in the past. The American government historically could not do that.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
You sound a lot better.
I think it's closer.
It sounds better?
I think it's closer to his laptop, though. That's why.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I had to just go through a whole thing. Okay, but anyway, I apologize to you, brothers.
Oh, no problem.
No, you don't have to apologize, brother. Don't worry. You don't have anything.
Yeah,
to
you're good now.
about.
Alhamdulillah, we can hear you.
We are in the process of moving out of where we are to a new city in Homs, which is in the middle of the country.
Oh, wow.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. It's kind of like a crazy time because Homs is in the middle of the country. Where I'm at right now is basically all the way in the north. So It takes me 5 hours to get to Damascus. It takes me like 8 hours to get to Deir ez-Zor. So, big drama show.
I understood. Inshallah, may Allah make it easy for you to make that move.
I mean.
Well, for those who are unfamiliar with Bilal Abdul Kareem, he is a head journalist, has been reporting since Syria, since the Syrian Civil War started. Did you come to Syria during the war, Bilal, or was it during the war?
Okay, well, actually, I came to Syria in 2006 just for a week, and I hated it. Islam wasn't strong. I got sick off of some poison that I had ingested. I felt the effects of the poison for a year.
Oh, wow.
And I said,
wait, you were intentionally poisoned, or is that what you're saying?
Or food poisoning.
Was it food poisoning or actual poisoning?
Well, look, let me put it to you like this. I was with some people, and they were not happy with me because they wanted me. I came for a recording project to learn English, okay? Because I've been in the media field for a long time. And basically, they wanted me to praise their Sheikh during the recording. And I was like, nah, man, I ain't with it. Because I saw their Sheikh and he was doing some weirdo stuff. So I was like, nah.
That's what Sheikh Amr does too.
He tries to get us to record him, but we say no.
So
he wants a lot of praises too.
Well, I told them that, I don't think I'm really with that. And they got pissed off. One guy told me, I'm going to ask Allah not to forgive you. I was like, what the heck?
I think it's that New York in you. You don't want to just praise people for no reason.
Well, you know what? I had been studying in Egypt for a number of years. So, I mean, you know, Islam and the Islamic rulings are important. That's not something that I just kind of throw behind my back because I'm looking for a paycheck. And so, you know, they didn't understand. They were like, come on, man. You know, what's up? I thought you were cool. And it was like, you know, and the next thing you know, I got sick, and I got really sick after eating from them. And I went back to, I was living in Egypt at the time. And brother, I was down for the count. I felt the effects for a year.
Oh, subhanAllah, subhanAllah.
Wow.
Well, so then you eventually ended up moving what year?
Okay, so the Arab Spring kicked off in 2011, March 2011 here in Syria, and I came here in August.
Yeah, mashallah. And it looks like you picked up Arabic pretty well. I've been seeing some of your videos where you're conversing with a lot of the locals pretty fluently. How's that going along?
Well, originally when I left America, I left as a student of knowledge, and I went to go and learn the Quran and to learn the Sunnah and to learn Arabic. That's why I left America. Okay. As the years went on, I started working as the program director for Huda TV. So I used my music background and production background and just kind of transferred it into the halal way, into producing educational shows for Huda TV, and that kind of started me off in doing production. And then I was just looking at all of Muslim TV stations around the world, and it wasn't reflecting anything that was going on in the Muslim world. It was like it's not even happening. Yeah. So I was like, man, I ain't with this movement. I want to do my own thing. Yeah. So I asked the Huda TV brass if it was cool if I do some current event stuff. They were like, no, not really. So I asked them again. They were like, no, not really. And I was like, oh, come on, man, don't be like that. Hook me up. And they was like, no, not really. I said, okay, I quit.
SubhanAllah. And it's been Syria since then.
Okay, now after I did that, I traveled to so many countries around the world doing documentaries and covering things and producing TV shows everywhere from India to Europe, all over the Middle East and back. So I got a lot of experience in understanding people, understanding that everybody doesn't live like us, and in spite of what Donald Trump might want to tell you, no, everybody doesn't want to be want to have the same American culture. Some people got their own thing, and they cool with that. We as Americans, even me myself, as I was growing up, I thought that everybody wanted to live like us. That's what I thought, because that's all I knew. But once I traveled, I started to see that people were happy with what they have. And it was just plain wrong for us to just come in like a wrecking ball and just all of a sudden now, we just want to bogart the situation, y'all gonna do what we want y'all to do. I just didn't think that was the right thing.
Yeah. Oh, mashallah. I think we had one of your relatives on the show recently, Christopher Abdul Kareem. Any relation? No.
No.
Not at all. The episode we had an episode we could probably put in the notes. I can't remember what it was for more detail about the background. This is just for the uninitiated to just get a little reacquainted with our Ustad's brother Abdul Kareem, Bilal Abdul Kareem. But now things have changed, right? In Syria. Syria's for the most part a few months ago, for a lot of people, became a completely different place, and that completely different place now seems to be becoming again a completely different place, or somewhat of a different place. So obviously we're going to get into a lot of detail, but can you just give us a little bit of a lowdown of what you're dealing with? Yeah,
especially if you could start off with just where we last talked to you. The next controversy that came up was the treatment of minorities. How's that going along? How is there? We've heard conflicting stuff. To be honest, I hesitated to talk about it too much because I heard from people who are Orthodox Christians in Syria who are saying everything's fine. There's, in terms of like relations between Muslims and Christians, but then there's people who seem like they're kind of pro-Iran. That crowd, they're saying no, it's a bloodbath and it's really bad. So maybe you can parse out some of the stuff for us.
Okay. All right. First of all, as everybody knows, the country fell from the hands of Bashar al-Assad, alhamdulillah, and the new leader of the country is Ahmed al-Shara, also known as Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, former leader of Hay'at Tahrir Sham. Now, but I think you guys pretty much already know that. The situation here now is 1,000 times better than it was under Bashar al-Assad. After having said that, after 1 million people have been killed, after half of the population has been displaced, after so many of the structures, the homes of the people have been destroyed, we're looking for something more than what we currently have. And that's not to say that nobody's being grateful for what we have. The reality of the situation is that I look at Syria with a developer's mentality. Now, when a developer is supposed to be making a skyscraper, all right, and then he puts the structure together, it's just steel beams welded together, basically. Somebody comes along and says, what you doing? And, the guy says, I'm making a building. And then the other guy looking at it says, man, that's all you got? That ain't nothing. Now he's not looking at it as with a developer's mentality. But if he looks at it and says, well, you know what? There was nothing here before. Now you've got a structure. All right, now you haven't arrived yet, but you're doing good. So keep on going. That's where we are right now. Now, talking about the minority situation and everything, the truth lies between the two stories, and I will explain. Do Muslims and Muslim fighters have a problem with Christians? No. Full stop. They don't have a problem with them. That's not an issue for them. It never has been. Islamic fighters they're just normal people who've lived next to Christians for a long time. But in every group, you got a few knuckleheads. And this group is no exception. But to say that it's a bloodbath and that that they're targeting the Christians, waiting for them to come out of the church and all this other stuff, it's not real. It's just not real. I want to be completely honest with everybody when the new government is doing good and when they're messing up, but that they're targeting Christians, that's fake. That's not real.
So let me ask you about this though. So last time we talked about this, you were really active in this initiative for no torture in Syria anymore. That was a big theme, that whatever government comes into power in Syria has to abandon this practice of torture for the longevity of the nation and for the stability of the people and the safety of them. And it seems that there are reports coming out now about people under the current regime being tortured. So what is the authenticity of that? How bad is the situation? Is it widespread? Maybe talk about that a little bit, because that's where we left off last. That was going to be the next focal point. So where are we with that now today?
All right. Firstly, let me just kind of put a muqaddimah, I forgot what the word is.
Introduction.
Yeah, an introduction here. Yeah. The introduction is as follows. When this war was going on and Islamic fighters were fighting in order to spread the word of Allah and to alleviate the suffering of the Syrian people, this was very much billed as an ummah thing. An ummah thing.
Yes.
And I think that we should be true and genuine to that in the beginning, the middle, and the end. And it shouldn't become just a local Syrian thing when some people start doing some weirdo stuff like torturing people. That's where I differ with some of the people in the new government. They feel that because, why are you saying this in English, Bilal? Give the brothers a chance, Bilal, is what the people say. Well, the reality of the situation is that the people who are in charge now are the same people we know to be in charge since 2018. They're new to people who live in the southern part of the country, but they're not new to us. Now, so when I tell you the realities which are taking place here, I'm not telling it to you because I'm a hater. I'm telling it to you because this is an Ummah thing. And we're not going to win as long as we are torturing people and indefinitely detaining them. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to make this clear for everybody, what my position is. We have many enemies. The Israelis, and we're going to talk about that, are 25 kilometers from Damascus. They're making almost daily incursions into southern Syria. We've got all of the others, the Kurdish militia forces are still in play. We've got remnants of Bashar al-Assad's old gang still in play. Lots of enemies, brothers. Let me give it to you straight. And we ain't going to defeat all those people if we are not going to have the support of the people. Say this again. If we don't have the support of the people, we're not going to win. Full stop. Now, one of the things that the Taliban did, which was very, very respectable, is that their leader decreed that there would be no torture in Afghanistan. Now, I just want to hear the brothers over here say that. I hadn't heard that yet. But I'm very keen to hear them say that, because there's still people in play, and they're not one or two of them, who are still torturing their prisoners. They're still doing it. And we're not going to accept that this is just a mistake, because it's not. And I am here to say, I want to go to back to back this new government. And I want to roll up our sleeves, because we're going to have to kick those Israelis out. They ain't going to walk out by themselves. That's just how they operate. That's their method of operation. If you show them something, then they turn their backs. But if you don't show them anything, they keep coming forward and forward and forward. Now, the Taliban were able to defeat their enemies. Why? Because they had the support of the people. And it was said that some 50,000 Talib were killed during the 20 years of war. Where did the replacements come from? It came from people who believed in the project. Now, if we're not going to deal justly with the people, then where are we going to replace and replenish our numbers? Because the general people are like, well, you know what? I don't know if I'm with that program. What's different here? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that it's very important that everybody and the Ummah stays engaged and helps the new government to understand, we're with you, we back you, we love you. But you ain't going to go in that direction and think that we're going to go with you. We're not.
Yeah. One of the names you mentioned to me was Abu Shuaib Mistri. That he was under detention, and that he experienced torture, that his wife came to visit him, and she confirmed that there were signs of torture on him. What were the circumstances of his arrest, and why did he, and what is his situation now?
Okay, Abu Shuaib Mistri was with, has been here, I think, since probably about as long as I've been here, about 2012, 2013. And he's an Egyptian national. He is a Sheikh. He's a graduate of Azhar. And Bismillah, mashallah, he has a lot of knowledge. He ran afoul of HTS in some of the rulings in which he gave, and they weren't so excited about those rulings. He ended up getting arrested in a very brutal fashion, and in the report that we did, we showed the actual footage of his arrest, wherein a pickup truck slams into him while he's walking next to his, I think his like 8 or 9 year old son, and a bunch of masked men jump out, bundle him into the car, and they speed off.
Wait, well, what exactly? What were his statements that related to those rulings? Was it like a disagreement about Taraweeh, and was it 8 and 20 rakahs? Like, what would upset the regime so much that they would say, your opinion is so dangerous that you need to be arrested?
Well, one of the things that put them at loggerheads with one another is the time when the whole Yazidi crisis was going on here. And there was one young man who was in the rebel-controlled territories from the Yazidi areas, and he accepted Islam. He became a Muslim because the Yazidis don't have the Aqidah of the Muslim. Okay? Abu Shu'aib Mistri's opinion, which is the sound one, was that you can't send him back over to the Yazidi areas, and he didn't want to go. But a deal was made between the Yazidis and some of the authorities in these areas and all, and that's when the whole khilaf basically started.
This is like the negotiations between the prophets.
Wait, so basically it's like handing over a Muslim to a kafir.
Who doesn't want to go back. He wants to stay with the Muslims.
Because
it's basically handing over a Muslim from his safety to the threat of a kuffar.
Yeah.
This is what the fiqh issue is.
That's it.
And they couldn't come up with any other solution, like maybe a different town, a different municipality, maybe get him out of the country, maybe like something else besides handing him over.
No, that's the thing. There are deals that were made. That's the problem.
No, but I'm saying, but maybe that's fine. They could say, hey, he ran away. I don't know. He took off. Yeah. You know, something, right? No. I mean, what I'm saying is that in these dealings, right? Yeah. I'm sure Bilal knows this as well. There's more riding on it than just one person. Right? These are just exercises of power.
Yeah.
Hey, we want this, you want that. Yeah. But if the guy says, hey, he escaped last night, I don't know where he went, there's no way they're going to break off all these deals and go back to fighting, right? They're both trying to stop fighting. That's why they're coming to the table, right? I'm just saying that they could have been
unless if there's a loyalty and a fear from the other side to do something. That's what
happens. Yazidis, how much power do they have?
That's the problem. I think that's where the issue is, right? They're not willing to do that. Maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, let's let Bilal talk about it because there's other, like Mort said, it seems like there's other avenues they could have explored, like maybe give him some kind of monetary compensation, like, hey, let us keep him and we'll give you some sort of monetary compensation for allowing us to have him. What was anything like that discussed?
Well, I couldn't tell you in the backdoor meetings all of what was discussed, but that was only the start of the difference of opinions. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of allegations which were made against HTS, and Abu Shu'aib al-Mistri was known as a dissident, and Arabs don't really like dissidents all that much. So then it went into other things where territory was being lost mysteriously. All of a sudden, fighters were being pulled back, and all regime was taking over certain territories, and there was a lot being said about that. Abu Shu'aib Mistri was on the side of suspicion in that regard. So things just got hotter and hotter and hotter between the two sides. But he never took up arms against them. To my knowledge, he never called for anybody to attack them, to shed their blood. He never made takfir on them or anything like that. And I think that if you can't tolerate a scholarly opinion, brother, you in trouble.
But not only that, Sheikh.
That's what this whole thing is all about. Even if you don't necessarily agree with him, it is not. I mean, who are we that it's like, okay, well, look, you got to get with the government program, or else, you know, you're going to be out. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, but
he was. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying, wouldn't it just be, especially in a time, me and Mort were talking about this before you came on, is, you know, it's a new change, and there's a lot of changes happening, obviously, and we're not there, you're there, so it feels a little weird talking about it. But just somebody who's observing from the outside, wouldn't it just make a little more sense, whether it's right or wrong, just to say, hey, you know what? We don't like your opinions. We don't like the dissent. You know we don't like dissent. Just keep quiet and don't say anything, or else there's going to be ramifications. Just don't talk. You can do whatever you want. At least that would be better than torture, right?
So my thing was this. I think I told...
No,
go ahead.
No. I'm sorry. Can I just jump in here for a second? I'm sorry, Akhi. No. That's not an acceptable solution to say to... people, particularly, but not limited to, people who have Islamic knowledge,
yes,
that your opinions, because they fly in the face of our political course that we have set, are unwelcome, and you should shut the up. I don't think that that's the right thing to do.
No, it's not a good solution. It's not good, but it's better than torturing somebody, though, right? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying on that end of torturing your own brother is better.
Well, I think my thing was this. So I think torture in itself, it should never be accepted.
Yeah.
To a Muslim, to a non-Muslim. We don't torture people.
Yeah.
This is a basic human
right
that we don't do that. And a basic principle within Islam that we don't torture people, for any reason. However, what I was saying was that if the government, like certain governments need to be heavy-handed. We understand sometimes certain things that can happen. Ruling is not an easy job. However, what I told Amr was that if they had some standard of a punishment or a whatever it was that was standard for anybody and everybody and transparent, that's a more workable model than people swooping you up in a van without any due process, with nothing happening, and then just torturing or punishing you, right? At least at the very basic, people have to know that there's a law that's transparent, it's clear, and in which there's a due process for. And that's where I think the lack of it is. Because there are governments in the world that are strict. For example, in Singapore, you can't just spit in the street or spit gum. You might get beat in the street, right? Maybe people don't like that law, but it's very clear and it applies to everybody.
Yeah.
It seems to me here that if you're on one side, some laws apply. If you're in other areas, some laws don't apply. And it's ambiguous. The due process isn't there. And I think that's what's troubling to me in all of this. Aside from the torture.
You see, I can dig what you're saying. And I think that you're right. One of the problems that happened is that when I was put into prison, and I did reports that were from about torture and stuff like that. One of the charges against me was incitement. They were saying I was inciting people against them. I said that for my reports, I gave you an opportunity to give your side of the story. You basically told me to get lost. So what did you think, that I wasn't going to do the report? I was going to do the report anyway, but I told you I would include your point of view, your perspective in with the other side of it. And you declined that. So how is that incitement? Well, one of the crazy charges was that I did an interview with this Abashib Mistri. And one of the charges was that I did an interview with somebody who's wanted. I said, okay, this charge is an Islamic charge in the Quran and Sunnah? No. Okay, if it's a law that you guys put forward, okay, cool, I get that. You can make other laws that are not in opposition to the Quran and Sunnah. But when did this law take place? Who did you tell about this law?
Exactly.
Who knew about it? And I wasn't trying to hide it. I did the report and I put it on TV. So, just making stuff up as you go. But I digress. The point here is that, look, we can have a discussion about the legal discourse and such like that. And I'd love to have that conversation. But brother, man, when we are taking people who fought on the front lines against this Bashar al-Assad and his murderous machine, and now, because of his scholarly opinion, that is correct, first of all. But even if it wasn't, and you smash him in the street with a pickup, guys get out and throw him into the back of the truck, you speed off, and then you deny that it was you. That's what happened.
Yep.
Denied that it was them. A couple of months later, because we always knew where he was. A couple of months later, it turns out that he was in their prison all along. Wow. And then he was released around a year or so later. But during that time, he had been whipped on his feet so badly he needed an operation. He came out. Now, when he came out, he said that there are children in the prison and that this is a wrong thing, ABC 1, 2, 3. He got rearrested again. All over again.
Is it possible?
And his wife went to go and visit him. She said that his feet had been whipped all over again, in spite they already were injured from the last torture that had taken place. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell it to you. I'm going to give it to you straight.
Yeah.
They don't like me getting up on TV and telling people that because they say I'm inciting against them. Okay, well, I will say this. If you stop torturing people, then we're going to be cool. Because I'm not getting up here and lying on you. That's a different case. If I get up here and I'm lying, and if anybody wants to say you lied about Abashib Mistri, I say, okay, cool. Why don't you produce him and let's look at the bottom of his feet and then we see who's the liar.
So I think that's where the issue lies. First of all, it's torture, which you agree on, right? Number two, it's the lack of transparency. Yeah. It's just making up rules on the fly, right? This whole idea was that when Ahmed came in, that we're going to have a system of law, and it's going to be governed by the Quran, and we're going to have this system that is going to be transparent to people. But so let me ask you this though. So the people that picked up the Sheikh, is this like okay? Because sometimes
are they HTS?
Well, sometimes the disconnect between the what I'm trying to understand is this something sanctioned by the current regime, or is it just being like they're overlooking it and not doing anything about it after a knowledge of it, or is there something ordered by the regime? Like, what's the connection between his abusers and the regime itself that's in power?
Yeah, because as we understand it, Bilal, HTS has formed alliances with a lot of people in order to form this government, in order to lead this government. Is it a matter of some of these factions that they've made alliances with, they're in charge of, they don't have the proper tarbiyah or the proper Islamic knowledge that this is not something that's part of Islam, and that because of this alliance that HTS has made with them, they're kind of being strung along in some of these practices.
The torture has been going on since before the fall of Damascus. Damascus fell December the 8th. This has been going on since for years. I've been screaming to the top of my lungs. My microphone needs a battery change, so if my sound goes out, it'll take me just a second just to replace it. But at any rate, so the torture had been going on. This was a practice that had been taking place before the fall of Damascus, number one. Number two, if somebody were to say, well, look, we've got these alliances with all these different groups and we really have to rein them in, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you care? I don't care. I don't think anybody cares about that. Bashar al-Assad could have came up and then said, well, I got all these different guys that are out there. I don't know what they're doing. I told them to stop. They didn't listen. All right, well, if you can't control them people, then you need to step down. I didn't tell you to become the president. Did I tell you to do that? I didn't tell you to do that. And if you cannot control your people, if you cannot act in an Islamic fashion, what we want is security under the umbrella of the law. That's what we want, to make it clear. We don't want this thing that Arab rulers like to give. We give you security, you give us free reign to do what we got to do. No. We want security under the umbrella of the law that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us and the rights that was given to the people. If you can deliver that, then let's get together, let's get to work. If you can't do that, then why don't you let somebody else come aboard? Because that's the only way that the Taliban were able to continue to replenish their numbers after facing a superior enemy, and now they control Afghanistan. Now, if we want to have the same thing, we can't do it independent of the people. And the people are not going to back your project if you're indefinitely detaining them and torturing them. Now, maybe the government might say, well, yeah, Bilal, if you would just shut up, you know what I'm saying? They would know what we were doing. But I'm saying, nah, man, I can't do it like that. And the people are going to find out eventually whether Bilal tells them or somebody else tells them. I got an idea. Why don't you just stop doing it? Because it's not permissible in Islam. And if you look at the powerful countries around the world, torture is not their practice, and it's there for a reason. It's not because they're such humanitarians. It's because they realize that torture practices, indefinite detention, and injustice does nothing more than pit the population against the authorities, and they both expend their resources. That's why Arabs have been getting their butts kicked all up and down the Middle East, because they're constantly at war with their population.
So what is the path forward? Are you suggesting that either Ahmed Farah, either he make the declaration or step down and give it to somebody who can? Like, what is the path forward now?
The path forward is just to have the government, the new government, just make a declaration that we don't torture people anymore and stick to it. And to make a declaration that we don't indefinitely detain people anymore and we stick to it. And thirdly, that that all suspects are innocent until proven guilty, and we're going to stick to it. And fourthly, all detainees have the right to see a judge. I didn't say to start their trial, but an acknowledgement that they are in government custody within 48 hours of their detention, not to keep people incognito like the other government used to do. Those are the four things that we're after. Those are the things that we're pressing the government for. If he could acknowledge that, then we cool.
So has there been any response from the current leaders in the government to acknowledge these four things you're talking about?
Not as of yet. Our lobbying for them is ongoing. We're giving it everything that we've got. We have no intentions of turning back. So, we're hoping that our brothers are going to see the real hikmah in the implementation of these 4 points. We hope, brothers. We don't want to be we don't want to be against anybody. Yeah. We got enough problems here.
Yeah.
What? But I'm just saying, man. Just come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Most of them cats were in prison previously anyway.
Well, I know where you're coming from, and to be fair, like I know you want to give brothers the benefit of the doubt, and I know you also are not doing this just because you want to cause drama. I understand it's a serious concern because you're generally worried about the welfare of the future of the state of Syria. Meaning, if you don't do this, then everything you've done up till now is in jeopardy because you're going to return back to what you saw 10 years ago in the last 2 years, right? I mean, so my point though is I mean, here's my dilemma. I couldn't imagine being in a state of power and dealing with so many different levels, or intricate problems that are occurring in the country at the moment. And to me, it feels like it's loosely formed, right? Like, Ahmed Shara has power because it was a formed organization, a coalition, and it's not really direct control. So how do you remedy the situation? Like, I mean, I know this is there. It's a good initiative. It's there. I support it 100%. I think it's needed. You can't have a country function without it. But how do you, forcefully put that out there? How do you get the government to realize that this has to be done? When you have more pressing, for example, economic issues, you have hospital issues, you have Israelis on your border just killing people. Like, how do you make this the priority in all of that to declare this, and then you can just quickly make a quick declaration and go on and go about your business, right? Because, see, here's the thing, Bilal, they can declare it, but then there has to be follow-up, right? And then if you don't follow up, then it's like you're just people of words. You're not people of action, right? So it's just this weird, I'm not downplaying what you're saying. What I'm saying is, it's just, I since I'm not a leader, I struggle with the practicality of how do you implement something like this in such a short term and so quickly when changes are happening.
Okay, well, to that, this is what I would say. The first step is the acknowledgement that torture is out. Mm-hmm. That's the first step. Second step is the implementation of it. And our plan is to open up branches in all of the different governorates so that we can follow up on torture allegations. We don't want to, when we say follow up on torture allegations, we don't mean run to the media, hey guys, look, there's more torture going on. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that when we have cases where it's credible that torture and indefinite detention is going on, that we can liaise with the government and say, hey guys, y'all need to take a look at Ahmed so-and-so or Mustafa so-and-so, and take a look at his case. We'll be back in a month or 2 weeks, and we want to talk about what's really going on here. That's the vision that we have.
And when you say the vision that we have,
we're talking about put things.
Sorry, I apologize. I thought you were done. No, I apologize. I thought you were done. When you said that that's a vision that we have, what are you referring to when you say we are like, because that part I think people need to hear clarity of. When you are going and petitioning for these rights, what position do you have in this here within the new government? Or
well, the actual project is called the Justice Covenant, or in Arabic, Mithaq al-Adala.
Mm-hmm.
I'm heading this project.
And you started this project.
And we have, yes.
SubhanAllah.
And it is an entire 17-page booklet of how prisoners should be treated and the process of their detention and such like that.
This is a beautiful thing. No, the reason I was asking is a lot of people think that you're a journalist, and mashallah, you're a darn good journalist, but this is a new layer, which is a great thing, mashallah, a great initiative. So based on this, are you getting, and I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, and I'm sorry you have to say it like that, but the fact that you're talking about this, is your safety in jeopardy because you're talking about this, through the...
Well, they put me in prison for 6 months.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about as of recent, after the new government.
Because I was talking about that. Is my safety in jeopardy? I don't think I can concern myself too much with the real answer to that question. I'm not going to say I don't care, because prison ain't fun. But at the same time, I mean, we have a moral obligation to make sure that we don't go back to the way things were. I can't support a suit change and some cosmetic changes and all. No, I can't support that. And yes, I am a journalist, and that's the work that I do. But at the end of the day, dude, I'm a human being. I'm a Muslim, and I can't stand by and just watch what's going on there and turn a blind eye. Because then, when the beat comes out, and then I'm going to get me one, I don't have a reason to complain, because I had a status, and I was more, I wanted to hold on to that status more than I wanted to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted. Nah, man, I'm not with that.
But Bilal, did you have any other statements related to the torture before we move on to other aspects of Syria?
1 second.
Yeah. Well, while he does that, I was just thinking, maybe, I mean, since, obviously non-profit or individual organizations are hard for governments to absorb as part of an initiative they do, right? Because they try to separate organizations. What might be helpful is maybe the initiative itself proposes a plan that the government launches internally that is like what we have in America, for example, internal affairs, right? Where there's a dedicated branch.
Yes, you're back.
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah. Well, maybe I was just thinking, sometimes the governments have a hard time working with, nonprofits, but maybe within the plan, you can ask the government to come up with this entire body. Like, how we have in America, the police department has internal affairs, right? If there's abuse going on, or if someone was inappropriately shot, or if something died, they have to investigate these things. Yeah. Right? Maybe the petition should be that government carve out an entire unit for internal affairs where it investigates how the government itself internally is treating and operating. And maybe that's an avenue as well. I don't know.
Oh, we lost you.
Oh, we lost you, brother.
We lost your voice.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the audio here. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Listen, I'm with any initiative that's going to help the brothers and sisters. I don't want to be a dissident. I don't want to be against the brothers. I don't want to, I don't want this. We have too many enemies, man, to be going through this. This is basic Muslim 101 stuff. You can't go around torturing people. Can't indefinitely detain them. Come on, the Prophet ﷺ said, al-bayyinatu ala al-mudda'i, that the burden of proof is on the claimant. So if you locking somebody up, you got to come up with the proof that he's supposed to be there, not kicking his butt until he says he did this or he did that. In Islam, that is completely unaccepted. His statement, if he said that he was a rapist and he did it under torture, it is not accepted. Now, if you've got proof, you don't need to be torturing him now, do you? You don't need for him to admit. If you've got proof of it, what are we torturing him for? What's that?
Yeah. Bilal, did you have any other statements related to the torture issues before we move on to other aspects of Syria?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I just want to encourage the brothers and sisters to please do stay engaged, because justice is the foundation. Man, if the people believe in your project, they'll give you everything that they have, and that's what we need. So we don't want to overthrow Ahmed Shara or his government. We don't want to be an opposition to them. We just want enough people to say to them, guys, what these people are asking for, no torture, no indefinite detention, and such like that, it's very reasonable. Come on, we're gonna have to square off against the Israelis at some point. Come on, y'all. Let's move on.
Bilal, as you are getting more acclimated with the new government, how has, if you were to contrast it under life or even at the peak of Bashar's power, how is that contrasted with the Ahmed Shara government in terms of how they're dealing with economic policy and other aspects of statecraft?
You know something, I'm going to tell you something about economic policies. I think, and Allah knows best, that they're trying to do something good. And economics is a very, very important part of governance. But we also understand, I think the Syrian people understand that that a lot of patience is going to be required. This country has been a mess, an absolute debacle for decades. It's not going to change overnight. We get that. And I do think that a real concerted effort is being made by the new government to make those changes. To what degree they will be successful? Well, the decisions that you make in 2025, you're probably not going to see the results of them until 2027, 2028. So, that's a bit difficult to call, but I would say that, I'm ready to struggle, inshallah. You know what I'm saying? You know, if there's no steak with the beans and rice and all, for the sake of Allah and for the country and everything, to move forward, I bet I'm with it. No problem. You know what I'm saying? And I think that much of the population is ready and willing and saying the same thing. Okay, we're with you. So I think with the in the economic sphere, I don't want to say that that's just not important, because it's very, very important, but it's not the most important thing, I think. But I do think that people want to get back on their feet economically, but they understand that's not going to happen overnight.
And how much direction do you think Ahmed al-Shara is getting from Tayyip Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, who even just recently, in a couple of days ago, Donald Trump said he was on a phone call with Erdogan and he congratulated Erdogan on, basically he hinted at creating a proxy state of Turkey in Syria. Yeah. So he said, no, I had nothing to do with it. And then Trump says, no, I know it was you. So, it's funny because it's so true, but maybe things like, the advocacy against torture, is it better to just petition to Erdogan to give that order to Ahmed al-Shara, or how much direction is the new Syria under Turkey?
Well, firstly, let's see, how can we put this? Donald Trump is from Queens. All right, I'm from Mount Vernon. That's about 40 minutes across the bridge. We know Donald Trump very well. Don't listen to anything that cat says. He has no credibility whatsoever. He does things like that because that's part of his negotiation tactic. Oh yeah, me and Erdogan, we go way back. That's my man. When he wants something. But if you go back to, I think it's 2017, when Erdogan was adamant that he was going to take on the Kurdish militia forces, I'm talking about the PKK, SDF, YPG, Donald Trump was like, nah, we're not with that. And what did they do? And the statement by Donald Trump is as follows, that he tanked the Turkish economy. Trump and Erdogan ain't cool like that. They're not. You see what I'm saying? But that's part of his negotiation tactic to say up front, I'll be very happy to mediate between you and everything, but you've got to be reasonable with him. You're talking to someone who's committing a genocide. Dude, what are you talking about being reasonable? That's just asinine. You see what I'm saying? So that's what Donald Trump does. We understand that. And, you know, Trump is Trump. Don't believe a word that he says.
But as far as in terms of what kind of influence Turkey has in the new government of Syria, what have you noticed anything? Because it seems like, you know, Ahmed al-Shara is doing the rounds in with Turkish politicians and stuff, and it seems like there was some level of coordination. We're not saying Syria is a client state of Turkey, but there is a level of cooperation. And when you see prominent politicians in the United States, people who are considered war hawks and people who are considered, you know, right-wing politicians being on the side of the Syrian revolution, it just makes you wonder, like, okay, well, what is the angle here? You know, because these guys, they want every opportunity to topple regimes like, you know, Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iran, and it seems like they're happy with Ahmed Shara's new government. At least that's the narrative that's playing out here.
Look, Turkey has a lot of influence with the Ahmed Shara government, and they earned it. They did. They backed the revolution for many years. I can't sit here and tell you that I agree with every decision that they made, but they backed the Syrian revolution, and the spoils go to the victor. That's just how it goes. In addition to that, the Ahmed Shara government, I don't want to go there. I want to say the Syrian people, they need to have a power like Turkey when you have a neighbor like Israel. The Israelis, as soon as Bashar al-Assad's government fell, they immediately invaded and took a territory in the Quneitra governorate right up to Mount Hebron, just 25 kilometers away from Damascus. Not a single shot was fired against Israel by the new government. It just didn't happen. You have Israeli incursions into the countryside of Darrell, which is in the southern part of the country, almost on a daily basis. 9 brothers were killed resisting them, and not a shot was fired against Israel. So at the end of the day, and to add something to that, the Israelis bombed the T4 military base that the Turks were widely rumored to have been looking to set up shop. Why? They don't want a Turkish presence there because they need to keep Syria weak. Turkey coming to the table gives Syria protection. Netanyahu's not with that movement. And that's why we're seeing the strife that we're having. So I'm going to come out and tell you, I think that the Syrian people can live with a Turkish presence here. They've been doing it all this time. And the Turks are not known for, again, I don't want to say that a modern nation state and everything that they say and do is right and good, because it's not, and I don't always agree with it, and that's normal. But they backed the Syrian people on a level that the rest of the planet didn't. And I think that that's enough said.
Well, I think it's also an important point. I think if you look at it geopolitically, the Turks have been better at playing the political game than the Arabs have been. And they've been successful at it. Right? And that means
the Arabs are always at war with their populations, man.
Yeah.
So how far are you really going to get?
Well, I think it extends beyond that, Brother Bilal. I think it's more about also the Turks have a history of doing that. They were the Ottoman Empire. They had, the Arab states that came about were recent in the last 50, 70, 80 years, 100 years maximum, right? This idea of governing, and then they were plagued with socialism and then nationalism. These ideas in the very beginning infancy stages, it was a rough start for all the Arab. They never really truly launched an Arab identity as a government. It was more so about, these different isms they rallied around. Whereas the Turks have a long-standing history of administration, right? They understand the intricacies. And this is one of the reasons why Iran also plays politics very well, too. It has a history in this, right? It's not a newcomer on the block, right? They've been there for thousands of years, and they're going to be there again, right? But so I think what the interesting thing, though, is that the reason why you're finding conservatives in America happy with the new government, it's not so much they're happy with the new regime. It's happy that the old regime, which was another extension of Iran, is gone, which makes them feel safer for their ally in Israel. That because what they were worried about is Hezbollah with getting, weapons and funding through Syria from Iran. They had a base there. Russia was also, Tartus was there, which is a huge Russian base, which obviously very close to the Iranian regime, which was by extension the government. So all of that breaks up when you have this revolution. So it's in the American favor to say, oh, they're not as strong as they once were or unified as they once were. This gives us open playing field. Israel can take land, swatches of land. No one's really going to do anything about it. Turkey's trying to find their bearings. They also want to be European. They're not part of the axis of resistance necessarily. Yeah. They have their agenda, but it just makes it more workable. Before, they were in a gridlock. It was Iran, Russia, and Syria, and Lebanon, Iraq, that kind of thing, right? Where it was their whole little block there. And now that block's been broken up. So they feel confident about that.
Observation, man.
Yeah. That's what I think.
Well, look, there's a lot that we can say about that, but I think we can simplify this. And some people are going to, they're going to roll their eyes. They're going to go, okay, all right, thanks, Bilal. But here is my take on the situation. The Arabs were nothing before Islam. And when they held fast to Islam, they became a superpower. When they tried to get fancy and they wanted to do their own thing, they went back to being the same laughing stock that they once were previously. Anybody who holds fast to the principles of Islam has the principles to be successful. Forget about, look, we talk too much about, and the world order and look, man, these guys, these world leaders, they come and they go. They bring their policies and they come and they go. I'm saying is that we've got the absolute best system that if we implement it, we can get around all of these Netanyahus, Donald Trumps, and all the rest of those other no good nicks. First and foremostly, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, we know full well who our enemies are and who are not. And therefore, it wouldn't even be permissible to take money or assistance from the enemies of Allah, knowing that what they want is to destroy Islam. That's not a political talking point. That's basic Muslim 101. Now, when you are holding fast to the Islamic principles and everything, there's going to be some difficult days. But you're going to have difficult days if you're doing just a political thing too. And we've been doing that. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. We've been doing this, we need a leader who's a fox. I don't want no leader that's a fox. The Muslim world has had Jamal Abdul Nasser. He was a fox, but he was a zalim also at the same time. We had other people with Anwar Sadat. He was supposed to be a fox, but he was also a zalim at the same time. We've also had Bashar al-Assad's father, Hafez al-Assad. He was supposed to be this guy that really knew the politics and how to get around and everything. And well, he's just pushing up daisies and he's just easy to carry now. Look, man, we had enough of these foxes. We want people who are saying that we want Islam, we're going to hold on to that and we're going to stick to that, and we want the people to be with us. That's what we want. All that other stuff, man, is just a bunch of talk.
No, I think you're.
This is coming from a journalist, and I'm sorry, Aki, I'm not like getting on you, not at all. I understand you, but I'm saying that you know, a lot of these discussions, man, and all we got it, we got the system, but we're giving it back. That's so true. That we can take one that's inferior, and that's why we're getting our butts kicked.
I mean, I think in simple what you're saying is, I mean, no matter what happens, if you follow Islam, doesn't really matter. يَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. Right? They can do what they want to do. They can plan what they want to plan. They can have they can sit in think tanks and decide how the Muslim world are going to carve it up. But if you are a party that Allah is pleased with, Allah will make a way for you.
Yeah.
Allah will open the doors for you and make it easy for you. And I think that principle, and it's just interesting to me that the very qualities that the West and historians and academics, when they talk about people like Khalid bin Walid, Umar bin Khattab, when they talk about radiallahu anhum, when they talk about Nuruddin Zinki, when they talk about Muzaffar Qutuz, when they talk about these leaders, Barke Khan, the thing that they all identify with is that they were politicians by day and monks by night. Meaning that they were warrior. They were so committed. Even someone who talks about, for example, some people follow MMA, but even people who talk about in a simple level, like a champion like Khabib, they say, listen, these guys are different. They don't care about winning and losing. They think everything is written. They just train and they pray at night and they do their best and they win. That's all. Everything is a win for them. Nothing is a loss for them. And I think like that's, and I know it's a simplified form, but I think that's reality, how the Muslims used to be. We're going to do, and I remember this hadith it was about tawakkul. And they said during the Hurub al-Riddah, when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was planning or was engaging in this, they said that we would see him in the masjid planning the war every day as if he made no preparation at all.
Ya Allah.
As if he had no reliance and did not believe in Allah at all. And then at nighttime, we saw him praying and making ibadah and asking and making dua as if he had made no preparation at all.
Allah.
And I think what the brother's saying in simple is that that's what you need to get back to.
Yeah.
That do what you can do, because we're going to be asked about what we could do, not what others are doing and what might have been the situation.
Yeah.
Meaning we had the blueprint. And this is also in, we take the Quran as an ibrah, even the lessons in the Ummah, the Prophet warned us about, for example, when the Abbasids, Allah, you could say, in the Turks, the Mongols used it. They said, Allah sent us to punish you because you got into extravagance. You began to, if you would have used the gold in your palaces to make weapons and invest in your people, we wouldn't have been doing this to you.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And this is the same situation over and over again. We're worrying about, we have the new space program. We have the tallest tower in the world. We're having the fastest rail. We're going to have this World Cup in the country. We're going to do all this, but you have no izzah.
Yeah.
You have no dignity. You have no autonomy in your life. You have no security, no safety, because the safety you're looking for can only come from Allah.
That's right.
You're like Rodney Dangerfield. Got no respect.
Just great comedians, but people just as a laughing stock.
Bilal's a comedian, so he understands that. Bilal, what's we know, I don't know if you heard, but worldwide, many scholars have called for jihad against Israel on a state level, not on the individual just to go and do something irresponsible. But we're talking about on a state level. What's the response been like, or what's the feeling like among Syrian society? Are they like, let Israel just bomb us whatever they want and take whichever land, we're just exhausted and we don't want to deal with war? Or is there this fervor that, hey, we're going to, rise up and protect our brothers and sisters in Gaza and alongside that, but protect our territorial integrity and not allow the Israelis to have free access to bombing whichever place they want to bomb in Syria?
I think that the people see right now that they would love to help their brothers and sisters in Palestine, but they have nothing to help them with. And that's where the Turks come in. Now, I don't mean the Turks are going to all of a sudden sweep across the Middle East and take over Masjid al-Aqsa. That's not what I mean. But I think what the people are seeing is that with Turkish assistance, they can at least provide protection and an opportunity for the state to grow. If left to the devices of Benjamin Netanyahu, then the state will never grow. militarily, economically, socially, because it would be the Israelis' number one top priority position to keep Syria weak as their neighbor. They will never, ever, in any kind of weather, allow the Syrian government to grow strong.
Yeah.
So let me, I'm sorry, I want to ask you something about that. So while I understand the Turks have definitely given aid and support to the Syrian people, but I can't help but wonder, and I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but I feel like there's a double-edged sword here. And that's because I read some crazy stat that 60% of the oil and petroleum inside of Israel comes through the pipeline that Turkey allows to go to Israel through the Baku, through Azerbaijan, the oil Baku, there. Yeah. And when you hear things like that, it's almost, and I don't want to be, again, just trying to find things to nitpick, but there's clearly a financial relationship there and an economic one that's important to Turkey. Right? So at what point does Turkey risk that for the Syrian people?
No, Turkey won't risk that. A modern nation state like Turkey will not risk that for the Syrian people, but they would risk that for their national interests. The two are not one and the same. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure, so but what is Israel threatening them with? I mean, obviously they've reached a deal with the Kurds, and the Yazidis can be in their own area. What would be the? I mean, you mean having Israel be on the border of Turkey would be their national interest? You're saying that the potential that Israel take over all of Syria, and then being a neighbor of Turkey would be something Turkey would be afraid of or dislike?
Well, does any neighbor of Israel make out?
Oh, you're saying the potential for that to happen would be a motivating factor for them to make, to take military action. Right. Okay.
The motivating factors are as follows. Number one, Turkey could use Syria as a buffer zone against any type of Israeli aggression. Mm-hmm. And that sounds harsh, but there are benefits in it for Syria, because being used as a buffer zone when you would be used as a floor swipe, okay, I'll take the buffer zone. Do you see?
Hey, I mean, that's why America has Canada, right? It's a buffer between us and Russia.
Yeah, that was going to play well in Ontario. But anyway, the point that I'm making here is that the Turks would be very willing to have Syria as that buffer zone too. They could station their military forces in and around Syria. That would help Syria to get back on its feet, and they would work and the Syrians and the Turks could work together. There's a lot of potential here in Syria, economic opportunities here, big time economic opportunities from the silicon trade and other than that. So there could be a lot of good things in it for the Turks. They're not going to do it for brotherly love and stuff like that. I just have to be real with you. And if the Syrians didn't have anything to offer the Turks, I don't know how interested they would be. But at the end of the day, just cutting off that pipe running through Turkish territories could open up lots of cans of worms for the Turks. But for the sake of Allah, and depending on what their calculus looks like, they might at some point say, what we stand to lose is much greater than taking this risk. So let's go for it. Now, one of the things that I would definitely credit Erdogan with is that he's a proud guy. He's not the type that likes to get chumped. And I can appreciate that from him. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I like everything that he says and he does. I think that in general, he's a pretty okay guy, in general. But he's not really the type that's going to get manhandled and walked over by the likes of Trump or Netanyahu. So I think that we've got some interesting days coming up, and we're going to have to just we strap in. We're in the front seat, so let's see what happens.
Just a point of clarification: there's no existing pipeline that's going from Turkey to Israel. There was some talks about creating a pipeline. There is no current pipeline between Turkish territory and...
Can you look up the stat then? Because it's something about 60%, I don't know how, but somehow Turkey has a hand in Israel getting its oil.
No.
Go ahead. My understanding is that there are pipelines which are currently running and have been running for some time, and it's 40% of the energy that they use in the Israeli territories are run through those pipelines. Another interesting stat is that 50% of the food that Israelis consume is imported. That's why the Houthi blockade was so effective, because once they shut down going through the Strait of Mendeb, that forces ships to go all the way around Africa, which adds 300% to those food items. That's why it's so disappointing to see Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates opening their ports to those ships so that they can unload their ships to a company called Trucknet, whose land routes go from Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates into Saudi Arabian territory, into Jordan, and on into the Israeli territories.
Yeah.
But the blockade is effective, and Jazakumullahu khaira for all that they're doing and sacrificing. They're doing a lot more than a lot of those other jokers are.
Yes, so I was thinking about something too, and what would be, because in politics we always talk about trying to see the deeper, the silver lining in certain things for nations, because modern nation states don't just act out of humanity, right? There's always a you pat my back, I pat your back type of thing. So I was thinking, what would be the incentive for Turkey to be involved in Syria? And for those that follow the region, they know there's always been this conflict over Cyprus, right? Whereas it's been split between half and half, right? Greece and Turkey, right?
Right.
And to the point where Turkey's their access to that sea, is the Mediterranean Sea is kind of chokehold right there between the Cyprus. The Cyprus is right in front of their entrance to it. So I was thinking that if they controlled parts of Syria, they would have that entire coastal line, and it would give them more control over the international waters there, where they're not so dependent on or worried about anything that might happen in Cyprus, right? And it might just give them more access to the Mediterranean Sea, which would be economically better in their favor, right? I mean, you could set all kinds of shipping ports, and without having to come inside to, to the your interior areas. So I was thinking maybe that might be a benefit for Turkey. I mean, it seemed, and it would also benefit Syria, of course, because you would develop trade and economy, right? If you have massive ports that are being reinvested into. So possibly, maybe that might be an outcome. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I understand what you're saying, and I think that the principle of what you're mentioning is right, but the closest landmass areas are Libya and Turkey, much more than Syria. So the Eastern Mediterranean and all, Turkey gaining more foothold in the Libyan territories, which is why they backed the internationally recognized government, because that would give them the control of of any natural gas or resources that were to come from that area, because the Greek area is all, if you don't go from the Mediterranean Sea, you go in the opposite direction, it's all landlocked. And when you're trying to transport gas, by way of trucks and pipelines that are expensive and so on and so forth, it just opens up a whole new thing. So I think Turkey doesn't geographically need Syria for that. And they've been working on that for a number of years. And so Turkey has a lot of cards to play here. So yeah, I don't think that they necessarily need Syria geographically for that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, like, what would be an incentive, right? Because that's closer to the Suez Canal, right? And that to that western front, right? The eastern side is probably closer to Libya and the Bosphorus and all that stuff, right? Where they have, obviously, it's open for them to fair game. So I thought maybe access to the Suez Canal, that kind of stuff. You never know. People have these plans, and so I just kind of brainstorm, like, what could be the ulterior, what could be the silver lining in all of this for them? You know what I mean? But Allahu Alam, it's a thing. Thank God I'm not a politician. Alhamdulillah. Yeah.
You know what? And I'll tell you something. It's not about, I think, really being a politician, because what you're doing and helping people to understand these realities and all, you may not call it being a politician, but you're doing a service. And the people, the brothers and sisters, need that so they can make intelligent decisions based upon information and not based upon who has the longest beard, who speaks the best Arabic, and so on and so forth. And we need to have these kinds of platforms so that people can understand what are the realities, why are Muslim lands doing some of the things that they're doing. And likewise, I don't consider myself to be a politician. I never heard the Prophet ﷺ talk about no politics, nothing like that. It was what was right and what was wrong, and you got to hold on to that. And I think that that's what guys like you guys are doing out there, and other Muslim outlets. And I think we need to see that grow, because we have got to get our perspective in front of the eyes of the Muslims. We're seeing too much CNN, BBC, ABC, and Fox News perspectives that are out there. And so many of the brothers and sisters are making their mental calculuses based upon that information that is totally against any Muslim interest. So, I just wanted to say that we need for you brothers to be busy and to keep busy and to open up more outlets. We have to have that. Otherwise, we're going to be making our choices based upon information that is just not in our interest.
Yeah, Bilal, a lot of people see you as an impartial voice in this, and they value your thoughts on this and on anything related to Syria, because you're fair in your criticisms. Where they're going right, you say they're going right, and where they're wrong, they're wrong. Having said that, when you see the HTS regime and its various implementations across Syria, are you seeing a implementation of a strong Salafi style, Wahhabi style, whatever you want to call it, brand of Islam, or are you seeing something that is very more, eclectic, has many different, is accepting of many different types of traditions of Islam in it?
It's way too early to make a conclusive statement. I think if we're going to talk about the upper echelon, we're talking about from the Ahmed Shaybanis and the Ahmed Sharaz and the other top officials, it's way too pragmatic. Way too pragmatic. And I don't think that a lot of the brothers fought and sacrificed for pragmatism. I think they fought more for Islam. And the Israelis, here we have a pragmatic government, but the Israelis are coming anyway. So what was the point? Do you understand what I'm saying? So in terms of the lower levels, I'm talking about like the local governors and officials and such like that. That's more of a cocktail of different people and different ideas. There are still too many Asad area officials that somehow slipped in under the radar and got to keep their gigs. So, but it's a work in progress. I don't want to focus too much on that. I'm not dodging your question, but there are a lot of things going on.
It's only been a few months.
It's only been a few months, and certain people have to get weeded out. I get it. I can dig it. But there's some things that we ain't gonna wait for. And we talked about those things. Some of the other things, we have to be patient. We've got to lobby them to say, hey man, I don't know if you know that cat that's sitting right over there, but let me tell you what he was into. And we have to have those conversations. So it's a process.
Yeah. There's this ongoing attack just from people who were against the revolution. And they may say that we're not against the revolution, but they're just against HTS. Let's just put that, okay? They're saying, HTS is much more concerned about internal stuff. They're just letting the Israelis take it, that their territory, that there's some kind of agreement or the reason why the Israeli, that they're at least insinuating that the Israelis have some sort of alliance with Ahmad al-Shara to grab land from Syria. Is there any truth to that? Do you think that this government is intentionally, at least in the view or for the purposes of peace, going to sacrifice land away to the Israelis to keep peace between the Israelis and Syria?
I don't have concrete proof of that. I don't. So I don't want to say that. I don't want to insinuate that. I hear those rumors and all, but I think that it's less important in terms of what the new government wants the alliances that they do or don't want to make. And I'm not saying that they make any alliances with the Israelis, but I'm saying is that what I am hoping to see is that the people have got to say more. They got to say more. Guys, you can't go back into a hole and just hope for the best.
Yeah.
And that's real. I'm not talking about just the Syrian people. I'm talking about the people worldwide. That matters. When people are boycotting and doing all kinds of other stuff, it mattered. And that's the reality of the situation. So once again, I can't say that I know of any type of backdoor deal with the Israelis and such like that. But I do know I see some things that I don't like. But that doesn't mean that they're in league with the Israelis. It doesn't mean that. But I see things that I don't like. Like, for example, in the southern countryside of Darrell, where the Israelis are coming and going. I'm not seeing government troops down there. I don't know why I'm not seeing them down there. That doesn't make me happy.
Yeah.
You see, that's the reality of the situation. Netanyahu saying we don't want any government troops in the southern part of the country. And there are no government troops down there. That doesn't make me happy. But can I sit here and say that Ahmed Shara is sipping tea and smoking cigarettes with Netanyahu in the off hours? I can't say that. Really, I can't.
So how is that being handled? I know it may seem like an oversimplistic question, and maybe the answer is obvious, but if there's no military presence there, where in the border of Darrell that you're speaking of, and maybe some other places, is it just up to the civilians to basically be combatants, or are they even being asked not to combat back, or is it just not? It almost seems like it's being neglected.
It almost seems as if it's being neglected.
So it's up to the people there to do whatever they can or want to.
And they have been resisting when they can, and that's when 9 fighters were killed. But those were not government troops; those were local fighters.
Subhanallah.
I think they're trying to hope and say, if you just ignore it, it'll go away. But I can tell you right now, their MO is not to go away. If you allow them an inch, they take a mile, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if you'd see them come even further and further behind, within Damascus if you don't stop something.
Yeah. The viewers are seeing a map of Syria. The Darrell where Bilal is talking about is the south end of Syria towards the border with the Golan Heights. That's where, Bilal, you're saying there's no presence of troops?
Nope.
Wow.
And you know what's really interesting is Darrell is where the whole revolution started.
Yeah.
That's where that boy was picked up. It would make
sense to have
right, Bilal, where the young boy was picked up and beat up into a pulp and dropped off to his family because he defaced the picture of Bashar or whatever. I think it happened in Darrell back in like.
Yeah, they were protesting something.
Yeah.
And once again, I want to make this clear that I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're not insinuating.
I count Abu Muhammad Jolani Ahmed Shara is a Muslim. So he's my Muslim brother, and I'm not going to charge him, falsely or anything of this nature.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to say that he's in cahoots with Netanyahu or anything like that. But after having said that, I wish he would have asked me about Israel. I'm American, and I know the Israelis very well and their politics. I'd have told him, dude, these people are only waiting for an opportunity. They're gonna make a play for Damascus. I'm telling you, they're gonna make a play for it. And if you're not gonna be ready, you can get run out. And that's the reality of the situation. But he didn't ask me for my opinion.
I think he knows that too.
Well, what is that? What is that like, though? I mean, it seems like he's had a lot of conversations with journalists, but you've been kind of excluded from those conversations.
I'm a dissident. That's the way they see me. Arabs don't see having dissenting voices as a positive thing, as strengthening their leadership. They don't see it like that. They see it as you either support us in whatever that we do, or you're in opposition to us. That's been Arab rule, and that's why the Arab brothers be getting their butts kicked.
Yeah, and I can't stress it enough. Like, I can just speak for myself. I want Syria to succeed. Everyone knows my position on Syria, and we literally had a long podcast with a whole lot of brothers who congratulated the Syrian revolution, and we wanted to succeed. We want the new state to flourish and be not just a leader among the Arab world, but a world power. And the reason why we give criticism is so that the state becomes better, that it's solidified, that it has strong roots, and that it can withstand any kind of geopolitical tensions, economic downturns, the winds of change that states go through. Even a leader passing away and having a new leader come on board and still maintaining its power and dominance in a region, that comes from an internal engine where you're building strong institutions, you're giving tarbiyah, you're teaching, you're raising people who are talented in the ranks, not based on nepotism and other things or other values that people see as important, but you see the talent in your country, and you raise them within your ranks, and you allow institution building, you allow models of organization and education to flourish throughout the country. That
it is very doable too.
Syria is a bright country. Some of the best doctors in the United States are from Syria.
Yeah, not even on the medical level, it's even on an Islamic level. I mean,
they studied in Syria is what I'm trying to say.
I know. Syrian doctors are very mashhoor. But one thing I'm also going to say for Ustad Bilal is, look, the Westerner will look at what he's saying. For instance, is saying that, Arabs, they do that and they get their butt kicked. It's not like, me and Mort and Sim are sitting from this comfortable place saying that Arabs are getting their butt kicked, right? You have to understand, number one, that's coming from a certain place where our brother who's involved in probably one of the most difficult situations you could put yourself in, which is Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, not to just the average public. It's to a government. And not just that, starting off as and I'm not saying this to praise you in front of you, I'm just saying this so people understand the context of this. Somebody who goes there as a journalist who finds a need of somebody needs to take a responsibility to hold people accountable and responsible, gets through those lines, is able to form agency for people to hold a Muslim government accountable, and is living amongst the Arabs, being an African American living in the Arab world, right? Which is not easy. I would have an easier time as an Indian born in or working in the Middle East who speaks Arabic than an African American. You don't have to give too much detail. I've lived with African Americans in Egypt. I've lived with African Americans in Mauritania. I've lived with African Americans in different parts of the Arab world. Now, to do that is nearly impossible to get to that rank of giving nasiha to a hakim as an African American in Syria. So that, in my book, that's impossible, but you did it. And that's from Allah. Right? So someone who's saying the Arabs are getting their butt kicked or Arab countries are like this, it's not out of a racism, it's out of our own brothers are these people, and these are my brothers, and I'm doing this for us and the ummah, so I kind of can say this, and I'm not bound by the same liberal values as everybody else in the Western world.
It's just not be able to say that. It's tough love, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that out of love, we say that, hey, because we want you to succeed, we see these are your problems.
Yeah.
And if you don't fix it, you're going to repeat the same problems as the brothers in the past.
Yeah.
And they're going to fail, and you're going to fail even more miserably.
But people have to know who it's coming from, too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But that's what I'm trying to say. It's tough love. Just like when your father comes to you and says, hey, man, look, you're messing up.
Yeah.
You continue, you're going to be in jail.
Yeah.
You're going to be dead. Yeah. Right? It doesn't. He's not wishing you death or jail. He's just telling you this is what's going to happen if you continue.
Yeah.
The truth is not kind.
I mean, at the end of the day, if the Israelis push forward, I'm going to be the first one to get the whip. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's just, they'd be doing Washington a favor. You know. Yeah. So yeah, I understand that. I get that. I realized when Bashar was here, same deal. But at the end of the day, guys, look, here's the way that I see it. 100 years from now, not a single one of us are going to be here.
SubhanAllah. Yeah.
That's just how it is, as the Syrians say, and it's all about what we can do. We ask Allah to utilize us and not to replace us. I mean, if I was sitting somewhere else, I wouldn't want to be there. I want to be here. I'm here because I want to be here. Yeah, we lost a lot, man. I'm talking about like a lot of this, particularly the Muhajirs, but also the Syrian people. We all lost it. We lost our families. We lost our homelands.
Yeah.
We were seen as terrorists by a lot of people around the world for years. Even some now. Wives that couldn't come, that they dumped us. Children grew up thinking that our fathers have abandoned us. Sometimes people might feel a level of, I'm not saying in a bad way, but in a good way, maybe jealousy of what we have because we're here in Syria, we're here in the land of Sham, but they're not jealous about how we got it.
Yeah.
You see? And, and it costs. But that doesn't take away from, brothers and sisters who are around the world that we couldn't do what we're doing if brothers and sisters around the world were not supporting us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We couldn't do it. Me as a journalist, if the only voice, the only out that I have is CNN and ABC, brother, they ain't gonna be interested in the take that I put forward to it, talking about some Islamic Quran and Sunnah. They'd be like, yeah, okay, thank you very much. We had Bilal Abdul Kareem on the line and all. That's the reality of it. We absolutely have to have people like y'all who are back there towing the line. We told the line over here, and inshallah, we're gonna meet in the middle.
I mean, Bilal, any closing thoughts before we wrap this puppy up?
Well, I mean, we're working on a project here, and feel free to stop us if we're going too far, which is called Voices of Truth, where we're documenting the crimes that the Assad regime have committed against the people. Why? Because 5 years from now, we don't want people to come and say, oh, Bashar al-Assad was a good guy. I don't know why he did this. He was really helping the Palestinians out, which he really wasn't. But we are documenting interviews with people from all walks of life. Those people who were unjustly detained, tortured, family members of detainees who never returned, and it's some of the interviews that we're doing are just really, really moving, and we are hoping that people can support us. It's called Voices of Truth. Can I give them the crowdfunding address?
Of course.
Can I do that? Okay, it's on medina.com/voices of truth. That's Medina with an H, medina.com/voices of truth. That's our crowdfunding page. I'm heading this project. We have to make sure that the people know what took place here, and it's there for everybody for the next 50 or 100 years to watch, so that when you start to see the way that things are going south, you say, hey, that's how things went south before. So whoever doesn't know history is doomed to repeat it. So it's medina.com/voices of truth.
Is that Medina with a E, MEDINA, or MADINA? MADINAH.com/voices of truth. Okay. Make sure to put that in the episode description as well. Bilal, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Please don't hang up.
Guys, I'm sorry?
No, I said don't hang up. We're going to wrap up the show.
Okay.
So thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Make sure you like, subscribe, throw a comment in the comment section below.
I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.